Okay, good morning. We're going to start on time. As Don said, we're on time. And my name's Amy Barnes. I work for Site 2. I am going to introduce Jay Sensi right now from campus Kaizen.
Got it.
Got it. And Jay is for our Track 1 breakout section, which is leveraging technology to keep schools safe. So let me give you a little bit about Jay. Jay is an NPA native. He is the owner of campus Kaizen. He also is a Site 2 customer.
I am.
So we'll bring that up as well. He is a software solutions provider for K through 12 and higher education and a continuous improvement consulting firm. He is a Six Sigma Master Black Belt who has a passion for helping organizations streamline operations. And some of you may also know Jay as a former TechBridge business competition winner.
It's been a long time, but yes.
So let me welcome Jay.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, everybody. Good morning. As Amy mentioned, my name is Jay Sensi. I am CEO and founder of Campus Kaizen. We are a software solutions provider for educational markets headquartered right here in Scranton. In fact, our office is right down the street at the Scranton Enterprise Center. You could find us up in the penthouse on the third floor if you need us. But I'm excited to be here today. I'm excited to be part of TechBridge Nation. And I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing in our world to try to leverage some technology and help schools keep their students and their staff safe. My goal from an agenda standpoint is to maybe talk for 15, say 20 minutes, and then leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, anything that anybody might be wondering about. A little bit about us. As Amy mentioned, we do serve the education market in a number of capacities. We've got two main software products. One is a roommate matching software called My College Roomie. I'm not going to be talking about that all that much today. And then the other is our Guardian case management software, which is a technology that I'll be talking about and referencing today in terms of trying to support schools on their efforts to remain compliant with regulations as well as keep them safe. So a little bit about our agenda today. Coming from a continuous improvement background, we always try to preach proactiveness over reactiveness. And so I'm going to touch on that topic for a few moments. We're also going to talk about some of the issues that we see across our client base. And our client base really being the K through 12 market as well as higher education institutions as well. We're also going to talk about the technology that we've developed and continuously develop to try to solve some of those problems that we see our colleagues and our friends in education facing on a regular basis. And then time permitting, I'll try to give you a little bit of a taste or a little bit of a snapshot of the Guardian system that I'll be talking about throughout the presentation today. So we'll play that one by ear. You know, there's typically two ways to deal with a problem in our experience, right? You can be proactive, all right? You could do something before a problem exists. Or you can be reactive. You can do something to stop the bleeding. You can do something that comes after the fact. Maybe it stops a problem from happening again, but it's something that, in which case, the problem has already occurred. What do you think most people do in our everyday, daily life? Marty's telling me reactive, right? We're humans, right? We wait till there's a problem until we try to figure out how to fix it, right? And so a very common example is your seatbelt, right? When would you put your seatbelt on? Should you put it on before you get into the accident? Or when you start seeing that you're going to hit a brick wall or a tree, should you at that point scramble to try to get that seatbelt on to keep you protected, right? It's common sense. We all know what the answer is. But the thought here is, how do we get not only all of us, but potential clients and folks in education and in terms of who we serve, to think more on the proactive side? How do we prevent the problem from happening in the first place so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where the problem has already occurred, now we're scrambling to try to find a solution or stop the bleeding. Working in education and serving the education industries for almost 10 years at this point, we've seen a lot of the different issues that they've faced over time. And I've tried to bucket them from the standpoint of this presentation really into three different categories. Efficiency, compliance, and ultimately safety. And when we talk about efficiency, it's something that we try to promote with some of our software products in terms of not only just selling a tool to a high school district or a higher education institution, but creating something that makes what they do easier, faster, cheaper, and providing value throughout the value stream. And some of the things that we found with our educational partners is almost all of them are understaffed, especially now after COVID, when they've done layoffs and furloughs and people have left the industry. Everybody seems to be understaffed. Education is also, I'll say, a little bit behind the times when it comes to manual processes. A lot of them do things by pen and paper. The solution that I'm going to be talking about today is a case management system for tracking things like disciplinary actions and areas of sexual misconduct. And you'd be surprised how many schools we talk to that still keep file cabinets with paper files in them, so when they have to go back and reference something or find, did this student or did this staff member ever get in trouble in the past, they have to dig through file cabinets to try to find that information. Very, very manual. And also the use of share drives and email folders for those that are a little bit past the manual process, but not quite all the way in terms of having a database or a tool to store everything. We also then get into compliance. So when we talk about compliance, we find that teams are often heavily undertrained. They don't have a lot of record-keeping methodologies. And when it comes to regulations that change, like something like Title IX that you maybe have seen in the news more recently because they just celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Title IX regulation. And so for anybody that doesn't really know what that is, it's government regulation around protecting people against discrimination based on gender, sexual identity, and so forth. And the thing about regulation is it keeps changing. Every administration that comes in, they change their interpretation, they change the rules, and educational staff have a really, really hard time keeping up with the changes in regulations. And then the big thing about safety, the volume of threats keeps increasing. Sadly, we hear about school shootings a lot more these days than we did maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Staff members don't have access to compiled information. And there's also a lack of accountability. If you did a YouTube search on some of the tragedies that have happened in schools around shootings, there are always students saying that we told somebody. We told somebody that this person had red flags and they didn't do anything. They didn't take the claims seriously. And so in addition to the volume of threats increasing, there's also a lack of accountability, creating an opportunity for more tragedies to happen. And so unfortunately, what we see is that, and this is more prevalent in the K-12 world, we find, than in the higher education world, but schools are no different than the rest of us. They typically wait until something bad happens until they try to figure out how to fix it. And sometimes that's a lawsuit, and sometimes that's just bad press, and unfortunately, in other cases, it's a tragic event. And so we sought out to fix these problems, or at least fix some of them. And so in the same buckets of the issues, I want to talk about some of the things that we try to do with our technology with our educational partners to solve some of these problems. And in the efficiency vein, we wanted to give them tools to allow them to do more with less people, right? Solve that understaffed problem. If we can supplement bodies with technology, maybe we can keep them moving at the same pace or handling the same amount of volume without having to go ask for money to hire 3 or 4 more people. Of course, we want to automate manual processes. The more we automate, the more we can do and the higher capacity we've got. We also wanted to promote digitizing and automating all record keeping. which is something you'll see as a trend in some of the other buckets here that support in multiple areas. In terms of compliance, what we've done is we've partnered with industry experts, attorneys, consulting firms that interpret policy changes and regulations, and help guide the efforts so that we can make sure that our colleagues and our partners are well informed. And we wanted to create a one-stop shop for documentation and information. And we also wanted to make a tool that was adaptable to support changing needs. The example that I gave about the changing of the regulation, something that's not going to stop. So we wanted to create something that schools can take and adapt to their needs, even if they change over time. When it comes to a safety aspect, creating the efficiency in the efficiency column opens up capacity for schools to be able to handle more volume when it comes to potential threats. We also wanted to compile necessary information into one screen. So when someone says, hey, I overheard Johnny saying something that could be a threat, school administration have a database of record to be able to see all of those other potential claims or threat assessments that have been done in the past, any red flags to identify them before they become a problem. And from a compliance standpoint, be able to track all actions to make sure that they're taken seriously. In the past, you could find a video on YouTube of somebody that survived the Columbine shooting. And he bashes the administration saying that we told these people that these people were a potential red flag, and they brushed it under the rug. Well, with a system of record where you can make an electronic report of something that could be potential threatening, there's no brushing anything under the rug. Someone has to do something with it. There must be action taken to make sure that it's either documented and noted, or perhaps a more serious investigation needs to take place. And so using some of the tools that we create, in our mind, creates a more proactive approach that helps institutions avoid the lawsuits, the bad press, and those are unfortunate, but hopefully really helps them avoid the tragic incidents that could happen as a result of some of these things. And so the product and the technology that I reference in this presentation is a system that we've developed and we support that's called Guardian. Guardian, the name was chosen very, very carefully to insinuate a tool that would allow administration to help keep their environment safer. At this point, it's now one of the industry-leading softwares in both K through 12 and higher education. And a few things that we've done and created in this tool to parry and eliminate some of the issues that you saw on some of the prior slides are both digital and mobile incident reporting. So if I'm a student, if I'm a staff member, if I'm even a concerned parent, I overhear something, somebody is exhibiting behavior that's concerning, I now have an electronic and a mobile mechanism to make a report, which automatically notifies the key administrators that they should at least consider looking into something, and it notifies immediately. Depending on the type of report, it can also automatically notify police and law enforcement that something maybe is a little bit more critical and they need to take action immediately. Also, from a compliance standpoint, secure record keeping. So an entire database of every type of person's involvement in various types of cases over time. And this doesn't necessarily have to just be students. This can be staff members. This could be faculty. Unfortunately, we have clients that have issues in their software where there's an issue that involves both a teacher and a student, or a faculty member and a student. And so what we've tried to develop is a database that allows administration to keep everything in one place. Document involved parties, keep a history of all their involvement over time, take notes, document meetings, all of their communications, and keep a timeline. Not only does this kind of force them to be a little bit more accountable, but from an audit and compliance standpoint, it helps them also keep their ducks in a row. The Office of Civil Rights is very, very prevalent in the education realm. and they like to come around and audit and make sure that schools are retaining to their compliance, doing what they have to do. And from a cover your butt perspective, it's a system that allows them to do just that, just by using a system. Automatic report generation, the ability to share information securely with parties, and from an efficiency standpoint, integration with other systems that a school might be using. So this could be a student information system, an employee relations system, and becomes something that gets tied together with some of the other systems that the school might be using. You heard me reference Title IX, which is some regulation really around sexual misconduct and gender discrimination and so forth. But what we see across our client base is that schools take something like Guardian and they use it to cast a pretty wide net to support a lot of different areas. So something like behavioral intervention, everything from counseling. If some student is exhibiting behaviors that are just not them, depressive behaviors and so forth, there's mechanisms for schools to take action, to reach out, to provide counseling or other services that they may need. Employee relations, employees do bad things as well, in addition to students, right? So keeping all of that information in a secure place so that they can run histories and look at things from the past to make sure that there are no red flags that they need to take care of before they become a bigger issue. Threat assessments is becoming bigger and bigger the more time goes on. When we say threat assessment, that could be somebody that may be dangerous or maybe talking about doing something that they shouldn't do in a school. We had a scare, I think it was last year in Dunmore, right, where some students were making some plans to do some really awful things, and thankfully somebody heard about it and squashed it before it became a problem. Something like that could go into a system like this to notify the right people to prevent tragedies from happening. We're even working on technology for predictive analysis to identify red flags based on some of the parameters that the FBI has put together for profiling a potential school shooter that we plan to put into the system to try to help keep schools safe. We work with a lot of different institutions, both in the K through 12 and the higher ed space. These are just some samples. Some of our largest clients, like Chicago Public Schools, has over 1 million people in their database across 650 schools in Chicago. We started in higher education, are really growing like wildfire in the K through 12 space as well. And we always like to promote some of our local clients that put some early faith in Guardian. Lackawanna here in Scranton, Wilkes, Kings, the Geisinger School of Medicine, East Stroudsburg, as well as some others. From a case management process, what we try to do with our technology is help schools maintain the entire life cycle. Everything from planning and administration through the issue intake, incident reporting, documenting all pieces of their investigation so they're staying on course, all the way through remediation and resolution, and then providing them with powerful analytics so that they can hopefully improve their processes over time to be more proactive and get out of that reactive mindset. If anybody wants more information, wants to learn a little bit more about the tool, I rambled a little bit too much, so I'm not going to be able to show you the actual product itself. I know I'm at the 5-minute mark, and I want to break for Q&A. But I appreciate you all coming to the talk this morning. Hopefully you take a little bit of information back as value. Love to answer any questions that somebody has. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Jay. John George.
Hi.
I was a resident hall assistant at my university, and this product would have been helpful in a lot of situations. So is this more of an administrative side product, or can it help with the level of the resident hall assistant as well?
Most of our higher ed clients also leverage it for their RAs and their RDs. Everything as simple as a roommate conflict or a fight in the hall. It depends on how the institution is structured, but a lot of our higher education clients involve the RAs because they're doing some of the judicial process at the residence hall level. So that is a trend that is really, really growing on the higher ed side. I'm glad you think it would help.
It really would.
Anybody else?
Greetings, Jay. My name is Alex Brunel. So let me think. Having had the unfortunate privilege of occasionally dealing with educational institutions, what is your biggest challenge to adoption by those schools? I'm just curious from a business perspective, and how have you been successful in overcoming those reluctancies?
Yeah, so great question, Alex. I find that higher education institutions, adoption is much easier because they've been dealing with a lot of these issues for a lot longer and have had more scrutiny from the government to have a database of record to keep information like this. So higher education is not as difficult as we're finding K through 12 from an adoption standpoint. K through 12, I think they're just behind the curve from a technology perspective. Their mode of operation has always been, when we need something done, we throw more bodies at it instead of trying to think about tools that might help us do things easier. But what we're starting to see in the K through 12 space is a lot more scrutiny around retaining documentation, regulation. So adoption is growing there. But the best way that we found to break into K through 12 market is education. Doing webinars, educating them about the need, not necessarily scaring them into needing something like this, but talking about some of the issues that their colleagues at other districts around the country have felt in more of an educational capacity that we're hoping is driving the adoption rate. Thanks, Alex.
Any other questions? No? I think we're good. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, everybody.
I mean, you have 2 minutes to spare if you want to show what you wanted to show.
I can, sure.
Okay.
I do have it up. So, I mean, this is just a sample. This is something that, you know, an institution would have on their website or something that's mobilely accessible that a parent, a student, a community member, an employee can go to make a report of something that they want to notify of. It's also dynamic. So any particular client can choose what it is they're going to submit, a threat, a Title IX, student discipline, et cetera, and allows for dynamic intake of information so that each function can intake the information they want, automatically notify the right people, ensure that consistency and compliance, and hopefully allow the administration to take things seriously, do their investigation, and hopefully prevent some bad things from happening. That's my 30-second version.
Great. Thank you. Thank you
Welcome.
very much.
Thanks, everybody. Have the great rest of your day.